as we know that we are going to talk about one of the most talked about company in the town, and we know the reasons why Meesho is being much sought after brand these days. But before we start our conversation, I would like to ask each one of you here, how many of you buy products from Meesho? Can I have just show of hands? Sadly, very few. Kirti. But I'm not sure about others, but I'm one of your loyal customers. And the reason I'm saying so, because recently we have been celebrating Ganpati festival at our home in Mumbai. And my wife bought a lot of products from Meesho to decorate the house. So you have one loyal customer sitting here right across. So we know, Kirti, that the company has seen phenomenal growth and registered kind of a very remarkable growth in recent times. And the two reasons that I could kind of call out is that recently in June, your kind of the app became the fastest growing shopping app with 500 million downloads. And you also became one of the first horizontal e-commerce company in India to kind of turn profitable. While we know when we take the name of e-commerce, there are two suspects that normally comes into our minds. But you have kind of carved a niche for yourself in this highly competitive marketplace. And I'm sure a lot of efforts would have gone into reaching wherever you are today. So in order to kind of create a position for yourself in the Indian market, what has been your actually success mantra? Before we come to the tech part of it, we would like to understand, because this is my first interaction with Meesho, and I'm sure people would love to hear what has been your success mantra in all these years.
Firstly, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And thanks for being a loyal shopper. I think maybe there are only a few others here. Probably this is not the target audience that probably Meesho is aiming for the most part, but I do see a lot of people from big cities also ordering from Meesho, the example that you gave of yourself as well. So yeah, I think it's been a great ride for us here at Meesho. The two suspects that you talked about, I've worked at both the suspects and now at Meesho, so I've sort of seen the full spectrum of e-commerce. I think what has worked well for Meesho, I think there are many different things. So maybe let me talk about a few key pillars, right? I think the most important one is just recognizing that there's a big unmet need in e-commerce in India. I think that, to me, is the biggest thing that Meesho uncovered. Because at the time when Meesho started scaling, there were e-commerce players in the country and many people in big cities who were affluent. They were using a lot of those platforms. But a big part of India did not have access to e-commerce. A lot of people in small towns, in villages, like they were still buying offline. And it's not that those people didn't have smartphones or they couldn't download the apps of the big e-commerce companies that existed, but it was something about the value proposition that they were looking for, which those companies were not able to offer. So Meesho's understanding of that Bharat segment, I think, was probably the biggest reason why I think it started gaining traction. And if I look at what are those elements of value proposition for the Bharat audience, the tier 2 and beyond customers with low to mid income in their pockets, I think the first big thing is around them being very value conscious, right? Which means automatically they wanted things that are affordable. So what you and me would buy, the price at which we would buy versus what those people would want to buy at were very different. And no e-commerce player was able to bring prices down for those kinds of customers. And one of the biggest innovations that Meesho did, which now other players are trying to replicate, is to create a marketplace where we don't charge any commissions for sellers. We are the first zero commission platform in Indian e-commerce, which means that the people who sell on our marketplace, we don't charge them any fee, which means that automatically they sell their goods at a much lower price, which then attracts these Bharat customers to come and buy. I think structurally keeping the price down is something that I think we've innovated a lot on. Apart from just the 0% commission, even the cost structure of the company, how lean we are, how efficient we are, a lot of that flows back into lower prices for customers. I think that's I think one big pillar which has made us successful. I think the second pillar is the kind of things that we sell. So if you look at Meesho, you will see most of the items we sell are unbranded, long tail type items, right? And these are not things that customers can buy as much on other platforms at that low price. And the reality is people in Bharat have limited means. They are looking to buy good quality products, but they're not worried so much about brands, which means a lot of what people buy on Meesho are these unbranded items, whereas somebody who's much more affluent may buy a branded version of that. So creating a lot of selection, items that we could sell which are unbranded, especially in categories like fashion, home, etc., I think was another big reason why Meesho was able to attract this customer segment, retain them. Right? So I think that's sort of the second pillar. I think the third one is more on the experience of using the Meesho app itself. So if you see, while on the surface it looks like an e-commerce app, I think there are many things which are very different. The UX design of this app is much, much simpler than other e-commerce apps, which means the people who, again, are from tier 2 and beyond, they also are not as technologically savvy, right? Which means they want something which has a much simpler interface, where it's much easier for you to discover products and buy them and not complicate them with too many features on the app, right? So that's a UX design choice that we've consciously made, which makes it very simple. A lot of our app, by the way, is also modeled on social media and messaging type apps, which these customers have grown up on. A lot of these people, for example, the first app that they would have used in their life would be WhatsApp or Instagram. So how can we create an e-commerce app which feels like that? I think it was another big design choice we made. The other big element on the app, which I think also works very well for us, is the amount of personalization that's there on the app. Because we are serving like literally almost the entire country, so there are so many geographic regional differences. So how do you ensure that when somebody opens the app, the few items that they see are things that they most likely will buy? So a lot of data science and machine learning algorithms have sort of gone into play to actually make the experience much more personalized. So to me, I think these are all the pillars: the pricing, the selection, the user experience on the app, and the entire discovering the unmet need itself. I think this is sort of, in my view, the big pillars of Meesho's success till now.
Fantastic, fantastic. So since I can draw the inference that you have embraced Bharat in the true sense and reached the grassroots level and have been catering to the market demands across the lengths and breadths of the country. So coming to the technology part of it, we all would agree that technology has been the backbone of this business, and expanding your reach to that level, you would definitely have that kind of infrastructure. So before we talk particularly about Meesho, in general for e-commerce companies, what according to is the role of technology in kind of creating the trust among customers, and as the topic say, with least human interventions? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think technology is the backbone behind e-commerce. If you look at how retail has evolved, traditional retail obviously was fully brick and mortar, and technology's role in that was only to the extent of sort of inventory management and some of those back-end type functions. Whereas as e-commerce came in, I think the reason why it has become successful and mainstream is the use of technology, right? You imagine how easy is it today to just open an app, place an order, and something shows up at your door in 3 days' time, right? So literally the only human intervention was actually placing that order on the app, right? After that, everything else is taken care of. So, and the reason why this works very seamlessly is because there's a lot of very complex technology under the hood. And I think if you look at different kinds of digital apps at play, right, like social media, messaging, food delivery, and many others, across all of them, e-commerce, by the way, has the most complex technology stack as well, because the number of different things that are happening under the hood to make an order. For example, like I was mentioning earlier, when you open the app, there's a whole bunch of personalization to ensure that you discover the item that you want to buy as quickly as possible, right? There's a lot of technology behind it. Or if you have something in mind, you want to search, especially like in Meesho's case, we have, I don't know, tens of crores of items on the app. So our search has to work phenomenally well for it to throw up results based on what customers are searching. So that's a very complex technology under the hood. Then you also have the entire order management system, right? When you place an order, what state is it in? If somebody wants to return an order, that's a different state. Somebody wants to cancel an order. So a lot of that order management system, again, is a complex piece of technology which is under the hood. Even things on the supply side, like cataloging. The fact that you can see images and videos of so many items so seamlessly in real time also has a lot of technology behind it. And then finally, the delivery part, right? The fact that we can deliver to any pin code in the country very seamlessly is through integrations with a lot of third-party technology, logistics players. So every element of the consumer journey, from the time you open the app to the time something shows up at your doorstep, is powered by technology. And because the level of technology is sophisticated, so sophisticated, that's what makes it very easy for consumers to use without very limited intervention, right? So yeah, I think it's there everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. So the conversation of technology would be incomplete without mentioning about the tech AI. And we all know that Meesho began its AI journey way back in 2019, where you set up your first dedicated AI team. Yeah. So how have you applied AI as a technology across the value chain to make e-commerce more simpler and relevant to your customers as well as sellers?
Yeah, absolutely. And AI has been an area where we've invested a lot, and more recently Gen AI, I can talk about that as well. But more broadly, in the last few years, I think there are few places where I think AI has delivered tremendous impact for us, right? I think the first area, which I mentioned briefly earlier, is just personalization, which is when you have so many different consumers coming to the app. We have more than 150 million monthly active customers, right? So many people coming to the app, and we are selling so many items, there's so much diversity. How do you figure out what to show to whom, right? I think and there's a lot of sophisticated AI algorithms under the hood which enable us to figure out at different points in the consumer shopping journey what items to show. So what you will see on Meesho in your homepage versus what I will see, I can guarantee you will be very different, right? And that's sort of where personalization, I think, has helped us a lot. I think that's one area where we've made a lot of rapid advances, where today our personalization is almost at the level of cohort of one. So it's not for a cohort of consumers, it's for at an individual level, right? So that's sort of the amount of sophistication in that personalization that's happening. So that's, I think, one big place where AI has really helped us. I think the other place actually has been more on this problem that we call RTO, or return to origin, right? Which is basically when a customer places an order, but somehow we are not able to deliver it to that customer, or sometimes we deliver it, but the customer refuses to accept that. That's called an RTO. It's a huge cost on the business. And we realize that the RTO is happening due to two big reasons. One, I think, is just fraudulent intent of some customers. Second is the delivery boy is actually not able to figure out the address of the customer. And the second problem is very fascinating because you're serving Bharat. So a lot of the addresses are not like our Bangalore's addresses, right? They're like the house behind that tree next to the temple, right? So that's sort of how the addresses are. So how can we figure out where to actually go and deliver, right? So a lot of AI has also gone into figuring out and improving quality of addresses. So when consumers are entering their address, how do we prompt them in the right way using AI? Second is based on what they enter, how do we actually clean up that address and make it legible for the delivery person to actually understand where to go. It's a lot of investment in this has happened, even sometimes detecting fraudulent intent and ensuring that for some kinds of that intent, we don't let them place an order itself, right? And how do you block cash on delivery for some customers, only enable prepaid? So there are a whole bunch of those in the checkout funnel where I think AI has helped and added a lot of value. The other place where I think AI has really sort of helped a lot for us is on the cataloging side, which is the sellers who are uploading their items. because like I said, a lot of our items are unbranded. So there is no brand to it. So what a seller uploads as an image and some attributes of it is what a customer sees on the app when they're making a decision. And a lot of these sellers are small sellers, right? We have a democratic marketplace, a lot of small sellers sell. And the images they enter and the attributes of the item they enter are again not very sophisticated, not very clear. So we've used again AI a lot to figure out based on what they enter, how do we actually translate that into something meaningful for customers on the app. Again, that's where AI comes in, where we can edit the images that sellers enter, edit the attributes that they enter, make them legible, make them understandable, right? So cataloging is again another area where AI has helped a lot. If I talk about Gen AI, which is last 6 months or so, I think there are two big areas where I think we're investing, and we've already done some experiments and we're seeing very positive results. I think one is on customer support, which is again having chat and voice bots using Gen AI, which can understand and respond to queries in multiple different languages. Again, because we are serving Bharat, we get customer requests in almost 10, 11 different languages. Right, so how can a bot understand that, respond to it much more intelligently, I think is an area where I think we've used Gen AI and we're trying to scale those chat and voice bots up. The other place where we're actively experimenting today is on conversational commerce, which is if a customer comes today, normally people look at different items, they search for it, they place an order. But what Gen AI now enables is how can you make it easier for that customer to discover that item by actually using their voice and them giving us some messaging which we can then understand and prompt the right items, right? This is what Gen AI is enabling. So we are doing a lot of experiments where we can make it very easy for consumers to say things when they open the app, and automatically the item that's in their mind sort of comes in front of them, right? And this is sort of conversational type commerce that we're experimenting with. So all of these are different use cases where we've used AI a lot, and it's created a phenomenal amount of value for us.
So I believe you have also been using AI a lot to kind of tackle the counterfeit products, because there has been a lot of news about it.
Yeah.
To make your platform more secure and trustworthy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's another place. Like I said, this again comes in the realm of cataloging itself.
Okay.
So a lot of the counterfeit, the source is also again some sellers listing some items which are similar to somebody else's, in some cases impersonating brands as well, because we have started selling some brands on our platform. So again, there we've again used AI to look at the images that some of these counterfeits have and actually detect that it's actually not a real image and it's a counterfeit brand image, right? So we've used again AI a lot. We've removed a lot of that counterfeits, and now we have almost close to 0% of those on the app, right? Again, AI has helped a lot there as well.
So do you agree that AI as a technology will kind of prove to be a very disruptive for the entire e-commerce industry and will make this a space more immersive in the times to come?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of all the different technological advances that have happened, at least in the last 10, 15 years, AI is by far the most disruptive one. I don't think anything even comes close to this. Probably the last thing I can think of which has created so much impact on at least the commerce industry in India and globally is like the GPS and sort of the mobile type technologies that happened, which happened almost 20 years back. So since then, I think AI has been the one, and I do think, not just in e-commerce, by the way, even in almost every industry that you can think of, it'll absolutely revolutionize it.
And apart from AI, any other technology that you are betting big on, which will kind of create more disruption in coming future?
Yeah, I think we've been thinking about it as well. There are different technologies coming up. I think the one that probably in e-commerce can play a big role, but it's still not fully lived up to its potential, is AR, augmented reality. And this comes down to helping some specific categories like furniture and the kind of categories where you have to superimpose a digital object in a physical world and see how it looks, and that helps you buy. Right, so that's where I think AR will help furniture, even in things like beauty, makeup as well. So I think that's another technology which I feel can create a disruptive impact, but somehow its adoption hasn't been great. Even the technology providers who should be sort of building a lot of that also haven't really taken off much. But I do think maybe in the next 5 to 10 years that can be another potential technology which can at least transform e-commerce for sure.
Okay. So one question, I just read a news yesterday that now from unbranded products, Meesho is getting into branded stuff, and we users will get to buy more and more branded products from Meesho now. So any tech preparations, because you can expect more traffic now coming to your platform. So what kind of preparedness do you have for this?
Yeah, I think we sort of had a conscious strategy, especially in the last year or so, to get into brands. We call this proposition Meesho Mall. So it's like a mall within sort of this broader marketplace of unbranded stuff we have. I think the main idea is to capture a higher wallet share of this Bharat customers, because the reality is while they buy 80-90% unbranded stuff, 10-15% of the things that they buy are still branded, right? And the brands they buy are probably different from the brands we buy here. So they're looking more at some national brands, but also some D2C brands and some seller regional local brands, right? So I think, so that's sort of the reason why we are going in that direction. In terms of preparedness, I think the biggest level of preparedness is just getting brands on board, which I think already we've made a significant headway. We have, I think, close to 700 different brands already that have started to sell some part of their items on the platform. So that is already started to happen. In terms of scale and traffic, we are anyway sort of have high level of preparedness now, given we're also getting into the shopping season. So that anyway is something that we've actively sort of taken care of. But I think the biggest test for us will be to see how much of what consumers buy on our platform will be branded versus unbranded, right? So that's something that I think data will tell as we have launched this. Maybe in the next 3-4 months, we'll also get a sense on whether we're able to capture that full wallet share of that Bharat customer, so that we should feel confident that, look, all of the brands that they buy today offline, maybe they're all buying it on Meesho. So that's something that we'll look at in the next few months and see.
Okay. So lastly, that you have been more than 8 years now into the business and seen phenomenal success. And we have a lot of young entrepreneurs, startup companies sitting out in this room. So any larger message for the young companies, that how they can scale their business and become the unicorns and the unicorns for the tomorrows?
Yeah, it's always very tough to give advice on this topic because it's such a hard thing, and there's many elements involved. Obviously, market, timing, luck, the kind of people you have. There's so many different ingredients. I think that based on seeing Meesho grow from a very early stage to what it is now, I think few things stand out for me. One is, I think as an entrepreneur, always picking a problem space that you deeply are passionate about, or you have some zeal to solve it, I think is the most important thing, because the journey is not going to be linear. That I think I can say for sure. Because even in Meesho, we started off as a social commerce reselling business, and now we are a large B2C e-commerce business. So this was not the idea on day one, right? So the idea is going to evolve, but the broad problem space is something that I think entrepreneurs have to be very passionate about, because otherwise you will give up very soon, right? Because the journey is not going to be linear. It's not going to look like some hockey stick like we read in books, right? It's a lot of stop and starts. It's very cyclical, etc. I think that's sort of one big takeaway I have. I think the other big takeaway is balancing sort of growth in the short term, or success in the short term, with the right long-term decisions. The reason why Meesho is so successful today is because a lot of the decisions we made on how to build a company in terms of culture, the kind of talent we should hire, the kind of investments in technology which are much more forward-looking. Everything I've told you is not something that we did at this scale. We did 3 years back when our scale was much smaller, right? So making the right long-term decisions, whether it's someone in terms of culture or people or technology, I think that probably is another very big lesson which I have at least seen play out in Meesho. So these are two things that really stand out for me.
All right, this is fantastic having a chat with you on this. In the interest of time, I won't be able to take questions, but I'm sure Kirti is around here. You can catch up with him offline and have conversation. And I'm sure whenever we are meeting next, we'll have much bigger story to share with us. Thank you once again for being this evening.
Thanks a lot for having me. I think great conversation.
Thank you so much.